obviously the topic surrounding the Niners this entire offseason is going to be Jimmy G and Trey Lance. This is something we actually have not really talked about on this show. You heard my opinions on the Jimmy G and Trey Lance situation just because I've had to go talk about it in different mediums. I mean, Grant and I talk about it every week. Grant loves talking Jimmy G, Trey Lance. And I talked about it once on another show, but I haven't really talked about it. Blake hasn't really talked about it. Now, we get into training camp, and apparently both of them looked great today. There's a couple of highlights circulating on Twitter of Trey Lance and Jimmy G both dropping dimes. So, Blake, I'm going to give you the floor first. What do you think about both Trey Lance and Jimmy G looking good day one of training camp? And how do you think this entire situation is going to play out? What do you think the Niners should do? Everything.
Yeah, with Jimmy G looking good, I guess I'm not surprised. When he's been healthy, he's been a really good quarterback. It's never been about his ability. I mean, even you, I remember during 2019 was telling me how great he was. And yeah, I mean, he did what he needed to do, and he was really good. I think the only issue people really have with him is his availability, and that really just in my mind is kind of the only issue with him. Now I know he definitely has missed some throws here and there, but most teams would be happy to have him. I feel like
he's a solid starter.
Yeah, I'd say he's an average to above average starter that, if you have the right supporting cast, you can go far in the playoffs, and they've proven that. So I'm not surprised he's doing good. I guess it's good that Trey Lance is also doing well. I mean, you'd never hope that he would be doing bad, but it does happen. I know there was some reports that maybe Tua wasn't looking great as people were hoping, and Zach Wilson's not at camp. There's other quarterback issues that could be happening. So anything positive about Trey Lance is good. And I know I guess one thing I really wanted to touch on was Shanahan saying that Jimmy G is the starter. He will start at the beginning of the season. And I guess he was basically gassing up Jimmy G. And I was like, okay, I think part of this is that he does like Jimmy G when he's healthy and really have success. He's also just trying to drive up the trade value a little bit by kind of saying, man, Jimmy's really good. I like it a lot. Jimmy's my best friend, this, that, and the other. I mean, the writing's on the wall. When you talk to or call about as many quarterbacks as they did, clearly they want another quarterback there. It's on the wall. Like you don't just look at 15 different quarterbacks and be like, oh yeah, Jimmy G's definitely going to start when you're looking at the Staffords, the Rodgers, the Trey Lances of the world. So I thought that was kind of funny how he's still doing his best to kind of give the facade that, yeah, Jimmy is our guy. He's starting for us when, I don't know, he won't be there much longer. Seems to be the verdict. But yeah, that's pretty much.
I agree with just about everything you said. So starting off with Jimmy, yeah, not too shocked that he looked great. He's never been really a great practice quarterback, so maybe that aspect of it is surprising. Yeah. But like you mentioned, he's been a solid player when he's healthy. Nothing like crazy good, not one of these like franchise type quarterbacks, not even one of these like above average quarterbacks, I would say like the Dak Prescotts. But he's right there with one of those guys where if you get the right roster, there's no doubt you can win. He's a starter in the NFL. He's not one of these guys that should be benched or anything. He's an actual starter in the NFL, right? If you had Jimmy G as your quarterback, you have a chance to win a lot of games with the right roster because he's a solid starter. So I agree with that. I don't see a problem with that. I wanted to touch on the second part you talked about because I think that's really important, right? I think the writing is clearly on the wall for the 49ers, right? No matter what they keep saying about Jimmy G, whether he's a starter and all of that, their actions have been very clear. They flirted with Tom Brady after Jimmy G's greatest moment so far in his career, which was being part of the team that went to the Super Bowl and having a pretty good season in 2019. No doubt about it. They still flirted with Tom Brady. Then you go through he's the GOAT. Fine. Next off season. Well, after Jimmy G is hurt for most of the season, plays hurt, doesn't play well, but you could make the case, I guess he's hurt. They flirt with Matthew Stafford. Fine, you're flirting with the top 10 quarterback. Fine. They were really into Deshaun Watson too. Kyle Shanahan volunteered that information. Fine. That's a top 5 quarterback. But then after they couldn't get either of those guys, a month before the draft, they trade 2 firsts, swap it for another first, and trade a 3rd-round pick to go get a quarterback at 3. And it wasn't because they did it for Trey Lance. They did it for the right to study Mac Jones and Trey Lance for further and ultimately make the decision on Trey Lance. And that's where they're at. So what does that bring me to with Trey Lance looking good? To me, this is important because to me, if Trey Lance looks good and he looks good consistently and they feel good about his grasp of the offense and his ability to play, there's a good chance he starts day 1. Why? This team has showed you they are not committed to Jimmy Garoppolo as their quarterback. You and I just laid out the reasons. When you trade that much for a quarterback, and I want to keep driving this point home because I think people are under the impression that this is somehow a quarterback competition. Trey Lance doesn't have to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo to start day 1. He just has to be good enough to be able to do every single thing that's required of him to be their quarterback because he's only going to get better playing. So even if he's maybe 90% of what Garoppolo is, there's more to gain for the franchise from playing Trey Lance, who's their future, their present, and who's their present and their future, than playing Garoppolo, who's their past, right? And to me, that's really, really important in this entire conversation because this isn't Garoppolo versus Trey Lance anymore. To me, them keeping Garoppolo, calling him the starter, one, you talked about the trade value. The other thing is it's just smart PR, right? Tomorrow, what if Trey Lance, right, today is a one-off and he struggles through training camp, right? Guess what you can say? Well, we didn't plan for him to be the starter at all. That's why we kept Jimmy. This is going right to our plan. This is exactly how we wanted things to work out. So now nobody's criticizing you for drafting a quarterback who wasn't ready at 3rd overall and trading that much a month before the draft to get him. Let's say he does look great. He's ready to go. He's ready to start. And you can start him over Jimmy day 1. Well, guess what? Then you say, well, even we didn't expect him to do this. We kept Jimmy. Like, we didn't expect to start Trey Lance. Like, he's wowed us. And now you've drafted the greatest thing ever because he's gone past. Like, he's surpassed what your expectations were for him. So the Niners win-win in both of those situations. That's why it's smart to keep Jimmy. The other thing is they don't have to force anything on Trey Lance, right? Like tomorrow, once Zach Wilson signs his contract and shows up to camp, he has to find a way to be ready to start for the Jets week 1. Trevor Lawrence, same thing with the Jaguars. Trey Lance at least has the possibility of if he's not ready, he doesn't have to start. But if he's ready, I guarantee you he's going to start because you don't give up that much for a guy to wait and ride the bench because you have Jimmy Garoppolo. If he's ready, whenever he's ready, he's going to start. If that's week 1, he starts week 1. If that's week 5, he starts week 5. I don't know what the ready is. Nobody's really sure what the ready is, but Shanahan, when he's sure that whenever that ready is, that's when Trey Lance is going to play. It has nothing to do with whether Jimmy Garoppolo has a good camp, a great camp, bad camp, whatever. Trey Lance is his own isolated example, and he's really just competing with himself.
So you think any chance Jimmy G starts?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a good chance of it. I mean, because we don't know what ready is, right? Ready is such a vague measurement, right? Like, ready to us could mean Trey Lance making 3 wow plays in preseason, us turning it on and be like, damn, Trey Lance could look good. But Shanahan's measurement of ready could be totally different in terms of his execution of the offense. So we don't know what that ready is, but I think whenever that ready happens, and Shanahan talked about in one of his first pressers, he talked about how ready, everybody will know, like all the players and coaches will know when that entire ready is. When you know that ready is, 100% he's going to start. I just don't know when that'll be. But if it's week 1, you best believe he'll start week 1.
I think I am confident that Jimmy will start week 1.
You think so?
For whatever reason. I mean, I feel like if and when, say, Trey Lance next week becomes ready, do they just keep Jimmy G around?
I mean, they got to try to trade him, right?
Well, can't they just cut him for...
Yeah, they can cut him.
I mean, realistically, who needs a quarterback desperately right now, though?
Nobody really. I guess you can make the case for Houston, but why would they give up anything to stomach his contract?
To win like 3 more games because they have him instead of Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, right. It makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like to me, I think it's a fair point, but at the same time, like, what are you gaining from playing him? Like, you're better off playing Trey Lance. Trey Lance needs reps, right? We're talking about a guy that started 17 games in college, threw the ball 289 times in college. If he's ready to play, you're doing yourself a disservice by not playing him. They talked about it this offseason. They felt they needed a starting quarterback. My thing is, if they were comfortable with Jimmy G starting this season, they wouldn't have flirted with every available quarterback, and they wouldn't have been that diligent and that aggressive about making a move a month before the draft. I think it's clear in their intentions and the fact that they made the move a month before the draft that they felt they needed a starter for 2021. And now Jimmy G just gives them that insurance of if the guy's not ready, they don't have to start him, right? Like, I mean, who trades a month before the draft that much draft capital to get a guy to sit on the bench for 1 year for Jimmy G?
Yeah, my only thing is like that's an expensive insurance policy. He's an expensive.
Yeah, that aspect.
That's what I can't get my mind around. I can't like wrap my mind around that because I feel like at the moment Trey becomes ready.
You know what? You know what I think is most. You know what I think is most likely going to happen?
He'll play, or they'll just have him in case Lance gets injured or something.
No, I think that what's going to end up happening is that he starts maybe like 1 or 2 weeks. They do, and teams do this crap all the time, and I don't get why they do it. Remember, Tom Savage played 1 half. And then the Texans decided, no, we should play this guy named Deshaun Watson, and he throws for 19 touchdowns in 7 games. You know, like what's his name? Played Joe Flacco played 8 games. You know, they did the same thing, but they drafted Lamar Jackson 32nd overall, but they traded up for him. They said, no, we need Joe Flacco. They were 4-4. They're like, oh crap, our season is not going well. Fine. Let's go put this guy named Lamar Jackson in, and oh no, we go 6-2 and he takes us to the playoffs. Like, do you think Lamar Jackson likely wasn't better than Joe Flacco if he started week 1? I tend to think that he would have been. Or like the classic example, and everybody thinks that this example applies, is Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, since Alex Smith started that 1 year and played really well, like Patrick Mahomes all of a sudden, like that made him. Guess what? 1 year. Do you think that 1 year of sitting made Patrick Mahomes throw 50 touchdowns his second year? His first year of starting was one of the greatest quarterback seasons of all time. He threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. How many quarterbacks have done that in NFL history, right? Only Peyton Manning, right?
Maybe, yeah, I would have said
5,050, I think, is only Peyton. 1 year of starting isn't doing that for him.
Yeah, but I think here's the thing, though. Would you say Jimmy G is more close to Alex Smith or a Brian Hoyer or a Mike Glennon or a Tom Savage?
No, he's definitely
say, because here's the thing. I would say Jimmy G's, like, I would say the situation's more like the Chiefs in the sense that Jimmy G is actually a good player. Like, you can win games with Jimmy G.
No, you can't.
If you put Tom Savage on that Niners team, they would not have gone to the Super Bowl. If you put Mike Glennon, Tyrod Taylor, Andy Dalton, whatever like player that's like a veteran quarterback, I don't think they would have gotten that far. And that's where I
agree.
Like, Jimmy G is actually a quarterback that you could sit someone behind. Realistically.
I think Bengals Dalton could have taken that 49ers team to the Super Bowl. And I know people are going to say, oh, what did Bengals Dalton do in the playoffs? Jimmy G threw the ball 26 times in 2 playoff games for them to get to the Super Bowl. I think Bengals Dalton was more than capable of having a playoffs of throwing the ball 26 times and making it to the Super Bowl, especially if 3 of those 26 throws are right to Eric Kendrick's hands and he drops them. But so I agree with that aspect of it. What I did want to say about that is I actually think the other comparison then, right? Alex Smith Mahomes is one. What about Wentz Bradford? Bradford was a similar player, if you remember, to Garoppolo at the time that they drafted Wentz. He also was injury prone. He also had a pretty throwing motion. He also was capable when he played. He was just constantly hurt. And you can make comparisons to Wentz and Lance. Wentz had injuries in his 2 years of starting. Lance probably makes it to the same 605 throws that Wentz had in college. if he had this year, if COVID didn't take it away from him, they're probably around the same thing, same number of throws in college. So experience-wise, they're similar. Both went to NDSU. Both executed a similar offense. So what about that? What about that situation?
Sam Bradford, did he ever have 1 year of being fully healthy?
Yeah, his rookie year. Remember, he went 7-9 with, or 6-10 with that horrible Rams team as a rookie year in his rookie, and they lost the play-in game, or basically a play-in game. It was a playoff game in Week 17 versus the Seattle Seahawks, with the beast mode Seattle Seahawks, the 7-9 Seahawks that went on to beat the Saints that year. That was he started all 16 games, I think, for them that season.
He did. It was half the time. It was more towards the end where he played like 2 games and 3 games. But didn't
he? The year before, the first year he was traded to Philly, didn't he play like 15 games?
For Philly?
With Chip Kelly?
Yeah,
with Chip Kelly. 14.
Yeah,
okay.
And he had 19 touchdowns and 14 interceptions.
I mean, it's not great, but I mean,
Jimmy's better than that.
He didn't have Shanahan calling the plays, but yeah, Jimmy's probably slightly better than Bradford.
Yeah, it's a similar situation.
But I'm talking about the perception of the two players. I think that's closer. I think Bradford was also viewed somewhere between, like the 17th and 23rd best quarterback in the NFL, which is probably the category Jimmy falls in.
Like 20th, probably.
Yeah, 17 to 23, somewhere in there. Probably 20th. I'd probably put him like 21st or 22nd. Yeah, somewhere there.
Maybe. I mean, if you factor in injury history too, but yeah, I think he's definitely more than capable of going. Bradford would not have. I don't know. Bradford also was the check down king. I'm pretty sure he had one of the highest completion percentages.
Yeah. That was the next season in Minnesota when he completed like 73% of his passes, or 72.6, I think.
Ridiculous. Yeah, I think it was
70. Yeah. And I remember the irony of that situation after they traded him, because of Teddy Brees' injury. They were able to get a 1st and 4th for Sam Bradford, and the 5-0 Vikings, because the Vikings started 5-0 that year and fell off, and their defense was dominating, because this was the year before the Case Keenum year.
2016.
And the 5-0 Vikings played I think it was 3-2 Eagles that year, and Bradford walked in chest puffed out, all 5-0, and then their season went to.
Yeah, and then he went to the Cardinals, got like $20 million guaranteed, and played 2 games.
Right. He was another example of, let's start Bradford for 2 games. Okay, he's not very good. Josh Rosen. Or Tyrod Taylor for 2 games.
Though. He would just get season-ending injuries left, right, and center.
What about Tyrod Taylor? 3 games for Mayfield, 1 game for Herbert.
Yeah, but the point is Jimmy G's way better than every guy we've listed. Like, considerably better.
Yeah, I think Bradford's the only one. Bradford's the only one that has a case that you could put in the same conversation.
In 2019, you would definitely have said Jimmy's better.
Yeah, no, I'm still saying it in 2021. I'm just saying better. Put them in the same conversation.
Maybe. I'd much rather have Jimmy. I don't think it's like. I'd say it's pretty unpopular to have Bradford.
Look, my bottom line is, and what I'm getting to and what I'm getting at is, I think that more than anything, I think the Niners have created, like, if you wanted him starting, then you're not flirting. Like you talked about it. They flirted with every available quarterback. Yeah.
I just don't understand what's the end game with Jimmy. That's what
I don't either. I don't get it either. I don't know why they haven't provided like clear clarity on, like, they clearly don't like him as much, right? I mean, you don't flirt with every quarterback if you love your starter, right? I think that's clear. But he's still hanging on in this roster, and even though they can easily cut him for a little, I think it's $1 million dead cap. They cut him.
Nothing.
Yeah. And they can do a lot of different things with his contract. He's somehow still here making $26 million this year, which is, I'm with you. That's the part of this that makes no sense. But to be honest, the way the Niners have handled the entire quarterback situation, and I think we can maybe talk about it another day, to me has not exactly been like they have a clear plan on what they wanted to do at
They
quarterback.
have no
That's,
clear plan.
yeah, to me, it feels like they pivoted from Stafford to Watson to ultimately they liked Trey Lance and Mac Jones from day one. And because they couldn't get Stafford and Watson, they made the move up and they decided on Trey Lance and they got their guy eventually. Like they eventually got there. But to me, them saying that it was Trey Lance from day one is disingenuous
That's
because
not
clearly
true.
Stafford was part of this process, and Kyle Shanahan volunteered that when Deshaun was available, Deshaun was part of this process too.
Yeah, I mean, when you flirt with Rodgers, Watson, Stafford,
Brady,
like pretty much anyone who's available in the slightest bit, yeah. They clearly don't like Jimmy, but they don't like Trey Lance enough where they can save $20 million by cutting Jimmy. And
right?
Jimmy's the starter, quote unquote, from Shanahan. I don't know.
It doesn't. Yeah, and it just goes back to me, and to me, the only answer I can think of is they're playing the media game, right?
Why would they do that though? Like Shanahan doesn't care what people think about him.
Yeah, I just think it goes back to the fact that they know they can win with Jimmy, if that makes sense, and they don't want to lose this season. But I don't think they necessarily feel they can win it all with Jimmy. I mean, if you look at the 19 Super Bowl, there's a lot of different quarterbacks that can win that game the way it was set up. He made a lot of critical mistakes in that game.
Yeah, but he also did. I mean, I don't think he played the best game ever, but he's not some scrub that just got completely willed. Like he had to make plays like that other players clearly could not have made.
No, and that's where the Rams, I feel like in a similar scenario, made it clear they just got rid of Goff. They just dumped him off to Detroit, and they're eating what $33 million dead cap this year to do that.
Yeah, they're eating like 1/6 of their cap space because they hate him.
Their highest paid player in terms of dead cap on their roster this year is who?
Probably Jared Goff.
Yeah, the Detroit Lions starting quarterback this year. So
yeah,
I'm with you.
The highest cap hit. He probably is getting paid more than Donald and Ramsey.
Yeah, he is. He's their highest cap hit. The Rams' highest cap hit is at $33 million, Jared Goff this year.
Man, that contract. That offseason had some bad contracts. They had also Wentz got paid a lot then too.
Yeah. And then of course
franchise tagged.
Yeah. Was Gurley that same offseason? He was the one before, I think.
2017, I want to say.
No, they were 18. They were 18.
Yeah, Gurley lasted like a year. Maybe Brandon Cooks was there too.
Yeah, that was another bad one. Sammy Watkins was that offseason too.
Pretty much every contract that offseason.
Yeah.
The Rams.
I mean, so bottom line is that Jimmy G and Trey Lance both had good day ones of training camp. And Blake and I aren't exactly 100% sure what the Niners' endgame is at the quarterback position with Jimmy G. We're just convinced that whatever happens, this team is now convinced or committed and focused on Trey Lance. This franchise is clearly no longer like whatever Jimmy G doesn't really change much for the future of the 49ers.
Yep, and we'll definitely talk with Grant about this.
100%. Yeah, definitely. We'll have him on as camp picks up, the practices pick up to talk about it. And I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about specific things that he sees with Lance and Jimmy.
Agreed.